All right, looks like we're live. Hello to everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us again for another live session with you guys. My name is Brittany Andrushin. I'm a business success coach with Practice Better, and I'm with Jen, who's also a business success coach. Today, we're going to be sharing with you 8 ways to establish a successful part-time practice. So, if, you're entering into the health and wellness space, sometimes you're entering in with limited hours and resources to start your practice, despite being fueled by passion and a desire to make a difference in the health of others, you may just have other commitments still that require your time and energy. And really, no matter what the reason is for being part-time, so whether you're just starting out, maybe you're maintaining another job, while you're working towards a full-time practice, maybe it's balancing personal commitments or even choosing to be part-time intentionally. We really believe that a shorter work week doesn't mean you have to compromise the potential of your business. So we think that working fewer or shorter days can come with a number of benefits. Some of those looking like, the ability to have better family balance, more time for personal time, and then other time for personal and professional pursuits, right? So being able to divide your time up and allocate it however you like or however you need to. So in addition to this, there's lots of ways you can structure your business and your workflows to ensure that the hours you're dedicating to your practice are still really high impact and high earning, despite those limited working hours. So we want to jump into those ideas with you today, ways that you can reap the benefits of working reduced hours and still build a thriving practice. So Jen is actually going to kick us off with the first couple of ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Britt. Hey, everyone. And I'm also curious too, for anyone who is joining live or watching the replay, let us know, in the comments if working part-time hours is something that resonates with you. So if you fall into any of those categories that we sort of mentioned, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah. So a couple of things I wanted to first touch on is looking sort of at your hours in your calendar. So firstly, I think it's really important to define your hours, first of all, when you are working part-time, right? Because likely with that, you have other commitments, whether that's maybe another job or just lots of family commitments or, other professional pursuits, whatever it is. So you'll want to really define, what type of hours you want to be setting aside for your practice. So, is that maybe evenings or weekends or a couple of days per week? So just to really get clear on that and get, determine what your other time commitments are and how that sort of fits in. I mean, it sounds quite straightforward and intuitive, but I think if you don't take a minute to sort of be mindful about that and sort of plan that ahead of time, it can sometimes just end up feeling very overwhelming because maybe everything's sort of, jammed together and it's not really clear, when you're going to do what and that kind of thing. So yeah, another risk is maybe burning yourself out if you have too much on the go. So just really, getting clear on what are the hours you're going to work and define those for yourself, put those in your calendar, however it might work for you. And then along the lines of the calendar piece is really, establishing your calendar. So once you've determined the hours that you want to work, you'll want to make sure you set up your calendar and your booking system with your availability to suit those hours, right? To ensure that your clients will follow those same sort of time boundaries that you set for yourself, that it's sort of not just on your end, but they're not actually able to book, outside of those hours that you've set. So really having, a calendar that works intuitively for you, to know, what service is available when, is really, really important just for that like seamless booking process. Like you don't want to have this back and forth with clients, say, accidentally they're booking outside of your part-time hours and that's, not going to work. So you have to go, reschedule, and it just creates this headache, for both you and the client. And so yeah, just really making sure you have that intuitive calendar and booking system set up with your availability is really important. And actually, we're at the end going to show you actually in the Practice Better platform, sort of a sneak peek of how you can do this in Practice Better. So stick around to sort of see that at the end.
Yeah, and kind of to that note that Jen was sharing about setting up your calendar so that you're establishing some of those boundaries, then you have to communicate them with your clients. So what should a client expect when it comes to communicating with you? If you're offering the ability for them to reach out for support as needed and to ask questions for clarification or direction when they're working with you, they're going to need to know when your actual office hours are. And it's just going to alleviate any of that frustration of sending you a message and then potentially not hearing from you for a day or however long it might be, right? So you could look to do something along the lines of a service agreement that includes your kind of communication timeline period. So maybe providing a 24 to 48-hour disclaimer on response times, and then indicating the best way for them to actually reach out to you during those times. And again, that's just going to help ensure that you don't miss any incoming messages, your client expectations are managed, which is so crucial to their overall outcome. And then, of course, they're just going to, keep things seamless across the board for you and actually allow you to maintain the hours that you've outlined, like Jen was talking about. And then a little bit further on that idea of clients and who you're working with. This is really common advice that we hear in the health and wellness world, but it really pertains to this kind of topic as well. And that's to be really clear on your niche. So identifying your ideal client is just going to allow you to do more targeted, efficient work. So you can think about if you were trying to put out a bunch of different types of resources and support and content for everybody, you'd be creating content all day long, right? Like you'd never be able to kind of cap it. So by having a really clear niche, you eventually become really familiar with their language, their pain points, what it is they need support with, how you can support them. And so your marketing efforts will become more direct. You'll begin to come up with those systems and methods that are going to support your clients without you having to kind of reinvent the wheel every time. You're not having to go back to your textbooks and dig into different things that they need support with all the time. You'll start to see those routine things come up. And this is really where templates and saved recommendations within Practice Better can alleviate that time-consuming repetitive work. Because once you get that framework together, you'll find that the next client that comes in, you'll likely be giving similar recommendations to. And again, you're not starting from scratch.
Yeah, I love that. And that sort of leads into this next idea I had is around streamlining your workflow, right? Like it's sort of in that same wheelhouse of like not reinventing the wheel and that kind of thing. But yeah, just in general, having systems in place to streamline your workflow. And, this is important for every practitioner, but especially if you only have limited hours to dedicate towards your practice, you'll want to really consider, how much time you're putting into your day-to-day workflows and, maybe the admin side of your practice and all of that. So really having those systems that are, efficient, it's going to allow you to sort of going back to the hours of work piece to uphold those hours you've outlined for yourself. Whereas on the other side of it, if it's disorganized and inefficient with your workflow, it'll just end up being more hours that you need to like actually accomplish your workload. So it just becomes, even more important when you're working limited hours to have that streamlined workflow in place. And so, one thing that we always love to talk about is looking at how you can automate everyday tasks in your practice to free up time, right? So that's another thing we'll be sharing in our little demo of the platform at the end is a few ways you can actually automate your practice in Practice Better to support that streamlined workflow, which if you are someone in this part-time bucket, either currently or looking to go more part-time in your hours of work, then that will be really, really valuable to kind of take a peek at. So just in general, doing a bit of an audit at, what can I actually automate in my workflow here to free up time? Because if you're working part-time hours, you want the majority of those hours to be spent on the highest impact tasks, right? Which is actually working with your clients and supporting them. And, whether it's working one-on-one or in groups or whatever it is versus, having a ton of time spent on the back end. So really streamlining your workflow is super key. And then one other thing to mention too is when you are working a shorter work week or less hours, looking at how you can actually increase your impact that you have during those hours. So, working part-time doesn't necessarily have to equate to lower income, right? So this whole idea of, maybe you want to offer higher ticket services or offerings that could actually bridge that gap between, the lower volume due to time constraints and a desire to make a more full-time income, and just thinking about how you can add more value to your clients. It can really then be reflected in the price of your offering. So just something to consider in, being in more of that part-time category is how can you sort of increase the value, not only in what you offer your clients, but, then reflecting that in terms of the price point so that it is still very much worth your time, and that side of things. And you're still able to build, a very scalable practice while working less hours. So yeah, those are a couple of pieces to just keep in mind is really streamlining your workflow and looking at how you can increase the value of those limited hours themselves.
Yeah, I love that idea. And kind of further to that point of increasing your value so that you can bring essentially more in still with those less hours is the idea of introducing passive income streams. So certain types of services and offerings will just be naturally more time consuming and require you to be a little bit more hands-on. So, think about offering those one-on-one consultations. Those require you to be present with your client, to be sat there for that full hour. And then of course you've got the time commitment of creating that protocol after and whatever kind of deliverables and resources you're sharing with them following. So you can see how that eats up a considerable amount of time when you're working limited hours. So the idea of passive income is to explore the idea of bringing in more income into your business without the same level of required hands-on and, the same time commitment. They're still going to require you to, create and market and sell those offerings, but they differ in that they can exist as standalones that continue to bring in income to your business in, again, just a more hands-off way. So things like this could look like an ebook. Maybe you're putting together a resource guide for your clients. Maybe you're offering more of a membership style of practice where people have resources and they're getting content on a weekly basis that's going to support them on their health journey. Maybe you have products that you offer, things that just don't require you to have that one-on-one time where you're really needing to kind of dedicate those hours specifically to one task. You're going to do that upfront work, and then it'll be kind of a little bit more passive and hands-off, but still generate that income. So that's one idea to kind of maximize your earning potential, but still maintain those limited hours. And then, you might reach a point in your practice that you just don't have the time to do what you need to do. And that's where you can introduce outsourcing and delegating for your business. So, by outsourcing, you're leaving yourself more time and energy to dedicate to other aspects of your business. So maybe you don't want to drop those one-on-one consultations, but the accounting and bookkeeping things have been eating up a lot of your time and making it a little bit harder to take on new clients. Maybe it's time to consider outside help with something like that. And when you're thinking about those things, you can really start to think about what are the things that are having, the most impact with your why in the business. So the actual meeting with clients and providing them support is likely what you got into this for, not to do like the admin, back-end, bookkeeping, accounting stuff, right? So think about the things that you're naturally drawn to, why you got in the business in the first place, the things that you tend to want to avoid or push. Those might be a good indicator of where you can start to outsource. And as an added bonus, thinking about that, when you're freeing up your time, you'll also be outsourcing likely to someone who's an expert in their field, right? So maybe you're not an expert in accounting, but the accountant, of course, that is their specialty. That's why they got into their work, right? So you're putting your work into the hands of a professional, and it's allowing you more time to be the professional in your own industry, in your own field and specialty. So it's a really nice trade-off that it's kind of a win-win in the sense of you get more time, somebody else who's an expert gets time to do what they excel at too. And that's just going to allow you to, again, maintain those limited hours, but still, like Jen said, have a really scalable, growing practice that is providing you perhaps even a full-time income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are so great, Britt. Yeah. So I feel like, these are some really, I would say, simple strategies, right? Whether it's like the managing of your calendar and defining your hours, creating those boundaries with your clients, being clear on your niche, to everything that we just talked about around, passive income streams and outsourcing and that kind of thing. So yeah, just some real like tangible strategies that hopefully resonate with you. If you are someone sort of in that bucket around the part-time hours piece. So maybe again, you are, part-time right now, but want to grow your practice to full-time eventually, but you still want to make the most of the hours you're working right now. Maybe your full-time hours right now, but you want to like lessen that and sort of downgrade, but still have the same impact and scalability, or maybe you just want to work a shorter week, who knows? So hopefully some of those will resonate with you in terms of really, just being able to have the impact and the sort of streamlined aspect to your practice whilst working those reduced hours. So what we wanted to do next is just share the platform. So like I alluded to a couple of times, there's a few ways that you can actually implement some of these strategies we were talking about right in Practice Better. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you can just give me 1 second to get this set up here. All right. Brett, you can let me know if you can see that okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, perfect. So the first thing that I wanted to share in Practice Better that's really going to support sort of that calendar management and availability piece is a feature in Practice Better called My Availability. So I'm just going to head to My Availability. Basically, what the availability feature allows you to do is get really granular on when you want to offer certain services. So as we were talking about at the beginning, like it's important to really define the hours of work that you want to put into your part-time practice. But then the second step is to make sure that that availability translates to when your clients are booking, right? So this availability feature is going to allow you to do just that. So I'm just going to click on one of the availability slots I have set up here. So let's say that you want to offer your services just 3 days a week from 9 to 5, and you want that availability to recur on a weekly basis. So you could set that up in your availability here. So that's exactly what I have set up here is the start and end time. You can optionally have an end date too if you want that availability slot to just go for a certain period of time. Maybe you're only working these part-time hours for, a couple of months or something like that. You could have an end date. And then you can choose how you want that to recur. And then you can choose the days of the week that you want that to recur. So yeah, in this example, let's say your part-time hours are Monday, Wednesday, Fridays from 9 to 5. And then as we get down to the bottom here, this is where you're actually going to select which services specifically you want your clients to be able to book within this slot. So again, that just allows you to get really granular on the hours that you're working and ensuring that when your clients go to book, they'll only be able to book these certain services that you've toggled on here during this time slot. So if they go to book, let's say on a Tuesday, there won't be any availability showing up. So just really allowing you to manage that in a really streamlined way. And again, as we were mentioning, avoiding any chance of like that back and forth and having to reschedule if they book outside your hours and that kind of thing. Another thing I wanted to mention is with each service, you can choose to have within the availability slot that restricted even further by how you conduct that service. So that's an option if, let's say, during this availability slot, you only want to offer the discovery session, let's say by online video chat, then you can even further sort of customize that here. So just wanted to mention that while we were in this availability feature. So hopefully that makes sense. You can comment if anyone's watching live or joining us for the replay, if that resonates with you, just in this ability to really, get granular on your availability to ensure that you can manage your hours and work with your clients in a really streamlined way when they're booking. All right, cool. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight was along the lines of the automation in your practice. So we talked about that a few different times in terms of, doing a bit of an audit on your practice to say, where can I sort of automate or streamline tasks even further? So I wanted to highlight actually our automations feature. So this automations feature, I'm just going to click here so you can see the list, but I'm going to talk about a couple specific examples, is going to basically set up various automations within the platform. So basically things that are going to happen automatically without you having to do anything, without you even knowing they're happening, kind of thing. So let's say one example could be when you're sending forms to clients. So that's one area that can sometimes become a little bit like, I don't know, back and forth, or you maybe forget to send it. And it can just be a bit of a headache sometimes. So we have an automation where you can actually set up your forms to be sent automatically after a booking is confirmed. So I'm just going to actually click into this one so you can sort of see a bit of an example. So let's say you want your intake form to automatically be sent to your client right after they book that initial consultation with you. So then you would just simply go in and select that initial consultation service to be the trigger. And then you can choose when you want those forms to be sent. In this example that I'm using, it would make sense to have them be sent immediately after the client books this service, but you could have them scheduled to be sent before or after the actual session date, if that made sense. So just depending on where you'd want to use that. And then you just go into your list of forms and you'd select which form. And so basically what this automation will do is as soon as your client books the initial consultation, immediately they'll be sent this form. And so, yeah, again, this is an automation. It's all happening without you having to do anything, really streamlining that process for you. All right. And then there's one other automation I wanted to share just as another example of how you could use this is with your tasks. So let's say you want to remind your client to book their follow-up session, right? Like, I think that's an area where many practitioners find it a bit of a headache to have to, keep reminding their client, and they have to remember to remind them. Maybe they forget and so on, or the client forgets, and it can cause a lot of back and forth. And so what you can actually do is utilize this automation around scheduling tasks. And you could schedule a task with a reminder to be sent to your client, let's say 2 days after their previous session. So again, you would just go in and select which session. Let's say it's the initial consultation, and you want to send them or create a task for them with a reminder, let's say 2 days after that session happens. And you can customize that, as you can see here, the timeframes. And then you would just go in and add a task for your client. And let's just say reminder to book follow-up session. And then you can optionally have a couple things here. If you want to have a due date for the task, maybe that's, let's say, 7 days after the task is created. You probably want to remind them to complete the task, maybe 2 days after. And then you can optionally have a notification sent when the task is created. So you can sort of customize that as suits you. And then you just create that task. And then you can also add multiple tasks to this automation. So if there was a task you wanted to create automatically for yourself as well as the practitioner, you could do that as part of this automation, and it would be created at the same time as all of these other ones. So yeah, just another way to use that to automate something in your practice that may be taking up time that you want to be spending on your actual work with clients. You don't want to, spend those precious part-time hours doing all of these admin tasks. So this is just another example of where you could use an automation to really support that streamlining and automation of your practice. So yeah, let us know what your thoughts are on the automation piece as well. If you are a current user, if you've tried these automations, if you're not, if that's something that you think could really work for you and support you in your practice, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. So I think that's all I was going to share within the platform. Britt, anything else you wanted to mention on that front?
No, I think that's good. I think that's kind of a nice picture of where you can get started to streamline things, just to kind of uphold those limited hours when you're working part-time. But I hope everyone was able to kind of get some takeaways from today's session with us. Lots of ideas about how you can really make part-time work for you. We don't want anyone looking at part-time through the lens of, that you can't enjoy that period of your time in your business as you're working towards maybe being part-time or full-time rather. It's really it can be very high impact. So like Jen said, a lot of these tips are pretty straightforward and simple, but putting them into practice, I think you'll feel a really big difference. So thanks everyone for joining us today. As always, if you have any kind of follow-up questions about the platform or anything related to Practice Better, you can always get in touch with our customer success team. So you can reach them at help@practicebetter.io. Email them, and they're fantastic at getting back to you with all the information you need. And if you have anything to share with us, feel free to put it in the comments below. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing to Practice Better for more content like this. We're always putting out new resources for you guys. We love kind of talking ways to build up your business. So again, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone.